Hey everyone, welcome to our masterclass covering SEO in 2025. Today, my guest is our SEO expert, Jack. Hey Jack, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So let's talk about all the things that people can expect in changes in 2025 with SEO. I know a lot of things are happening in search, and I think you're the expert person in-house that's gonna be able to tell us more about it. I know a little bit about it, but I know you know everything that's going on right now in the SEO world, and it's pretty crazy, right?
Oh yeah. So I think the best thing to start out with is just Google's changing overall. Last year we saw the trial with Google and the Department of Justice being deemed a monopoly. So the punishment for that hasn't really taken effect. That's still set to occur this year. And it's not really clear on what's happening with that. But the word is that Google is going to be broken up internally, and the key thing is going to be Google Chrome being separated from Google. And the reason why that's important is because Chrome sends so much user metrics and user interaction within websites to Google and their ranking system, and it's done through a process called Navboost. And there are a few examples that I'd like to point out what Navboost is.
Yeah, let me know what that is.
So Navboost is, like I said, a ranking. It's the process that determines ranking signals, which that could be someone searching for a search term like bridal photography or wedding photography, going to a website. If they interact with it, fill out a form, that would be a positive ranking signal and determine that it's more relevant to that search term. And then let's say you're on that website for 10 seconds and then they leave, that's a negative ranking signal, and that will show that you're less relevant to that search term.
So Google will recognize if someone just pops in and pops out, and that can affect a clientele that might be like, this isn't what I'm looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what that whole ranking signal is.
Okay, so Google's enacting this in this year?
Yeah, so Navboost has been a part of Google for the last couple of years. It's just recently been confirmed based on the Google leak that happened back midsummer last year.
Oh.
But it was all just kind of speculation up until then.
Secrets.
Yeah.
Well, they're utilizing all these algorithms and things that people not really necessarily know what's happening behind the space. But that seems to be something that, can really affect customers, because I know people that are like, I had a view on my page or my blog post, but how long is that blog post being actually read? And that can be a negative effect if they're just popping in and out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you can look at different user metrics like page scrolling, page click-through rates, and multiple other things.
Oh, okay. Google possible monopoly being broken up leads us into other things just about Google itself is the algorithm. What can you tell us is going on with the algorithm that is constantly changing from one week to the next, it seems?
Yeah, so last year we saw, I want to say 5 or 6 algorithm updates, and they all kind of reference the same thing: create helpful content, create content that's made for people with the user in mind, and not create content for search engines, meaning don't spam keywords in your blogs.
So when we're saying it, we're not just saying it because we want to say it. We're saying it because this is what Google is saying.
Yeah, exactly. And then towards the tail end of it, I want to say it was after the November update, the Google Search Liaisons came out and said that they are going to start releasing smaller, more specific algorithm updates. And we saw that in December with the release of 2. And one was kind of targeting more of that spam content that we saw in every other update from last year. And then the second one was specifically targeting backlink abuse.
Oh, okay.
And that was more along the lines of people who purchase backlinks and they're not really relevant. They're getting penalized for that, and that shows up in Google's tool called Google Search Console as a manual action that needs to be addressed.
So people that are purchasing something for a backlink, that was being negatively found, and they're pulling those out.
Yes, and that's known as like a spam backlink at this point.
Okay, so now it's a spam backlink. So what kind of things were people buying that they could look at to know not to buy if people are buying backlinks?
Yeah, so there are multiple sources that people got it from. I've seen people buy them from Fiverr. I've seen people buy them just from emails that they get sent from spam bots. So we see them in our own emails
all the time.
And then there's also dedicated websites that kind of highlight you can buy 50,000 backlinks and grow in search rank immediately. And
does anyone ever actually think that works?
There's people that do, like some of the SEO clients that we work with even do that, and I've had to explain that to them.
And do they see results from any of that, or never?
Usually it's before they start the SEO service.
So this is always something they premeditate and get, and then they're like, well, I got this thing, and it's not doing anything. Well, obviously it's not.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
in fact, it might be harmful at this point, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
So if people are doing stuff like buying backlinks, and we tell them not to do that, we're telling them to make sure that the content is fresh, and that's what Google is responding to. What are some things that people can do right now to their website?
Yeah, so first you want to make sure it's easy to navigate and make it easy for people. People now, more than ever, they have a short attention span, myself included.
Yeah, it keeps getting shorter, I saw. There was like a data point saying that it's almost less than a second now.
Yeah, exactly. And you just want to be able to have a very good user interface. And there's different ways that you can go about doing that. But the key thing you need to do is present information very quickly. Usually at the top of your page, have a very strong title at the top explaining what you do.
So some of the things that we tell people about navigation is not to clutter it, not to put too many menu items, because you've seen some people's menus, and they'll stuff it past like 12 items at the top, and it's just too difficult to navigate. Is that a negative thing that when it comes to user intent or user experience?
Yeah, so if people see too many options, they're not going to know what to pick. So you want to keep it simple. You should have maybe like 7 to 8 pages, maybe 10, depending on the type of business you run. But usually I recommend just having a strong homepage, maybe an about page. Some people are interested in that, but you want to have a pricing page more than anything.
Yeah.
And just to go over, because people don't really want to contact you anymore to discuss pricing or get a quote or anything like that. People want information now, not 2 days from now.
Speaking of the menu items and just how many pages you have on your website, I always reflect everything back to restaurants. So I'm a big Gordon Ramsay fan. And the one thing that he always tells people is do not put a lot of stuff on your menu and don't have too much stuff. You know, less is more. When we're looking at that, it can be the same essentially for someone's website. You know, have a dedicated about me page, homepage, contact obviously. I've seen some of y'all don't put contact pages. But then pricing pages. I know that kind of always goes back and forth. I know we did a poll a couple of years ago where 77% of our clients do put pricing pages, but I still some people saying they get worried of that. Is that something that you think people should worry about?
No, like it's all about providing transparency, and that information actually helps you with ChatGPT and AI answers.
Oh, so yeah, it's because now it can answer on behalf of you, right?
Exactly, and we've even seen traffic from ChatGPT answer pricing whenever we're looking at Google Analytics.
So we're already kind of going in there, but is ChatGPT really going to be the game changer when it comes to search?
It's still up in the air. I think it's changing search for sure. I don't think it's going to be the next Google. It's just making search change. Like we've already seen it with Google with AI overviews, and then they have a dedicated AI with Gemini. But I don't think it's going to be the change to search that everyone is saying it is, just because it's very limited and generic.
ChatGPT is still kind of in the adolescent phase of learning what it is. You know, its content creation is pulling from some of the worst sources sometimes. Like I'm sure you all have seen this email, but I hope this email finds you well. If that's the header, then it's probably not a very good email, or ChatGPT has figured out this is what people start with. And this is where it's kind of creating content based on relatively what it's been able to extract from human conversations now. So it still has a lot of learning to do.
Yeah, like someone explained it to me really great, and I love this example. ChatGPT is the medium. It's 5 out of 10. It's average material. It needs to be customized. It needs to be edited, no matter if it's a blog or it's an email. It will take the most generic response given to your query, and that's what it is. It's just average. It's not good. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's really mediocre.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of you getting a sales email and saying, I'm just following up. I'm just checking in.
No, and that's a great point, because I feel like some people are like, okay, this is all I need. This is good enough. But I really think it needs an extra set of curation afterwards. You know, like yes, I want this to fit my tone of voice. I have this previous text, please make it more refined, take out the typos. It's great for stuff like that. It's really good at like finding tone of voice and stuff like that, but then you have to also watch out for when it goes overboard, because sometimes it's like I'll say, oh, do this in this, jovial response, and all of a sudden it starts talking like, hey man, what's going on? I'm like, no, back down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you have to kind of like keep course correcting it. You're the navigator, and at that point, trying to direct it where it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And this has been a tip I've told people, but create like say you're creating a blog, create one paragraph at a time.
Oh, that's a great piece of advice, because I think some people are like, just write the whole blog.
Yeah, and then like I've even done that where I'm just generate an entire blog and I'll want one sentence revised, and you can use the highlight tool in ChatGPT.
Oh.
And then it will just change the entire blog, even though you highlighted the text and specified only that text needs to be changed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's rather annoying and waste time. So I've gotten into the habit of just creating one paragraph at a time.
I really like that. I'm going to keep that one for myself. I think that's a really good piece of tips for people.
And then like following through with that, if I don't know what the next section to be about, I'll ask what would be logical, and then it will give me like 2 or 3 different options.
Oh, that's amazing. Let's talk about user intent. Some people don't know what that is. So let's talk about what that is.
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to what I was talking about with Navboost, is user intent is the reason why someone is searching for a search term. So let's say I'm looking for a headshot photographer in my area using the headshot photographers near me. Obviously, the search intent was me looking for a session to book a headshot. I'm not necessarily looking for a blog about that or what to wear. It's all about why the person is searching for what they're searching for.
Okay, so it really comes down to like, if I'm looking for a hairdresser or someone to style my hair, which I don't have much of anymore, but if I was doing that, it looks based on that and the relevancy of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Navboost kind of determines those ranking signals based on the user intent. And like we mentioned bounce rate earlier, that's one of the strongest ranking signals right now. How long does someone stay on the page?
So the best performing ones will get probably the higher
engagement
rankings.
times, yeah.
Okay, so engagement is a really big piece of this.
Yeah, so you want really good, well-written content, and that's why like I wanted to mention the average content for ChatGPT is you need to make better content if that's the new average.
So keeping people locked in on the website, which I've talked about this for people on social media, it's like you want to take people from your social media channels, because the easiest thing they can do is scroll to the next thing. The idea is getting them from there to the website. And the website is, the funnel or the trap or whatever you want to call it, where now they got to be able to engage with the content that you're putting out. Some of the content there needs to be, like you said, needs to be really engaging. So you need to have higher quality photos, better, more data and information, pricing, stuff like that is what's going to keep people on the page. Now, are there tricks that people try to utilize? I know we've talked about, old black hat stuff where, keyword stuffing like that was on the page, but now when we're looking at, like, what if someone just leaves the browser open? Does that affect anything?
Yeah, so that can also play into user intent as well to a certain degree, but that's more on the theoretical side, than necessarily a Navboost thing. So for example, let's say you're at a checkout screen and you're leaving it open for 8 minutes, and that signals that you probably just went downstairs to get your wallet and then you got distracted.
Yeah.
But stuff that people can do when creating content is, I see it more and more that people just rehash the same stuff that's been talked about for the last 10 years. Like, what's the best way to dress for a photography session?
Yeah.
You need, that's been talked about. You can write about that and showcase your own personal experiences. But the best thing to do is just provide new information that isn't talked about.
So really stepping outside of what the norms are now. Because
Yeah,
everyone can write
exactly.
about like the best things to wear for a session. What are you doing to be different? And that's one thing that I talk about with people on our lives is, how can you stand out within your crowd? Like if you're in a more rural area, are you taking photos that are in a rural scape, or are you taking them to a city to change it up? What are you doing to amplify that? So even with content, they need to be able to explore something that's radically different to make them stand out in their said location.
Yeah, exactly. And even if they're doing like similar content, like one topic I've been helping with our SEO Go Plus people is how can you incorporate new photography trends for 2025 into your business, and what's your take on them? Do you think they're good trends? Do you think they're bad? What is your opinion? You're the photography expert. It's time for you to show it.
Right. This is where they get to show off their professionalism, right? So
Yeah.
they get to show their expertise and why, like, this trend is so good or this trend is bad. You get to be the expert.
Exactly. And then another thing I see all the time is people don't use proper font structuring. So I'm talking like your titles being H1 fonts, and within our website builder, you can see that within the text editor blocks, and people just use H1 fonts for paragraphs text, or you'll see an entire website this long just with title blocks. And I know we talked about this before, but you want proper font structuring with your H1 fonts being titles, H2 fonts being subheadings, and anything lower than that being paragraph text, unless you have like a subsection within the H2 font subheading. People just overthink it so much. But
Yeah, some people think H1 equals big.
Yeah.
So they utilize that, and then you can make your website a little too cluttered. And luckily, with the PhotoBiz website builder, you can change the size of your fonts. You can just slide it, and especially in those blocks, you can do it by block. You can change the paragraph to be as large as the as the H1 if you wanted to.
most people don't really realize that, but it's all about page structure. It's like counting to 1, 2, 3. You want your largest text to be 1, then second largest 2, 3, then paragraph.
Yeah, don't go much further than that. You don't need that many font sizes. I don't need to be doing this. Okay, like it gets really hard out there sometimes. I'm getting older, so I want, I don't need it too big either. I don't need to be going like that either. But like, when it comes to website design, we want to make sure that the hierarchy is respected, because this is how Google says H1 equals what this is about.
Yeah, exactly. And it also really helps with user intent, because if you're like me, I'm one of those people that don't want to sit for 5 minutes reading through an article.
Yeah.
I'll just skim through, and then I'll just look at the key points and the subheadings, and then I get a rough understanding.
Yeah.
And also using bullet points helps as well. Just indicate a couple key points within the subsection for bullet points. And that's helped us a lot out in the blogs we've been creating on the Growth Hub.
Yeah, we've been creating a lot of great content. If you haven't seen it, go to our blog.photobiz.com. There's a lot of resources. Jack's been helping us out in the last year, getting more of that stuff out there for SEO. So it's really, finger on the pulse. We're getting new stuff daily. He's finding out, and he's making sure that it is allocated to us, and we're able to update you guys. So definitely check it out. Subscribe to that whenever you can, or open your emails and read it then, because we'll send them in our monthly and educational emails. So check it out. There's a great response from that. So yeah, I agree. Like, we're putting out so much stuff about SEO now than we ever have before, because thanks to you, you're able to see that on the time when it comes out, because you're telling me like, oh, this thing changed today. I'm like, last week you said it changed. Like, yeah, they went back.
Yeah, Google likes to do that.
Yeah, especially recently, the last few years. They're in a more competitive nature than they've ever had to be.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's worrying them. So they're dealing with ChatGPT and the Department of Justice thing.
Yeah.
But right now, it's all political.
Yeah.
So
they're
we're
getting
kinda in limbo at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you never know if they're going to completely break apart, or, even in the competitive stance, they're dealing with social media search engines now that are becoming more prevalent,
Yeah, I've heard TikTok is actually a really strong competitor now.
It's one of the reasons that keeps Google on their feet from all the information I've learned. It's like why they've had to make such big changes. Because think about it, Google really hasn't made a lot of big changes since '99, right? Since it existed. It became a search engine, and it's what it was. It got comfortable, became a huge corporation, and of course it made many applications and sorts and things like that. But who's been their big competitor? Bing.
Like on average, they're about 2% of all search.
Right. So now they have a true competitor in this space, and that scares them. And I know even TikTok's going through its own political litigations and stuff like that. If it's even going to exist by the time this Masterclass comes out, we don't know. We don't know. But it's something that has radically changed how people adopt this technology for search. Like, people are finding like how to do a recipe through that, or how to dress for an event. Versus looking through Google. than they used to.
Yeah, and that's the reason why creating new, fresh content is so important, and not to rehash the same old content that's been talked about for the last 10 years.
What are some good ways people can see if the results that they're implementing on their website's good? Are there any metrics that they can look at?
Yeah, so my favorite metric to look at is within Google Analytics. You can see the average session duration, but you can also break that up to see each individual session duration per person. And it's very helpful because you can break it down to what page they landed on and how long they stayed on that page. But you can also look at page scrolls, you can look at clicks, you can look at conversions and various other interactions with the page, and you can even set up Google Analytics to track scroll percentage. So let's say they only scrolled about 60% of the page and then stopped. What did they do when they did that? Did they click away? Did they submit a form? Did they click a button? That's about at that level. Then that tells you a lot of information that you can adjust your website to user experience level.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen some Hotjar data. Some other third-party tools out there can measure some of this stuff for you too. Not just Google. Like you can see like heat maps, like where people are putting more of their energy. Where's the cursor at? Or how far they scroll and like the percentage of that, like he was mentioning. And it'll kind of, some of these tools will actually give you a ranking of like, well, this gets clicked the most, this one gets clicked the second most and third most, and so forth. When we're looking at these tools, what are some tools that people might be able to implement?
So, of course, Google Analytics, you can kind of use Google Search Console just to see your top ranking keywords that are generating the most clicks, but that won't really show the whole story. Then there are paid tools which you can use, like there is Hotjar, for example. I know we used that for a while.
Yeah, you know, it's great. You know, there are other heat map tools. There's so many tools out there that you can look at. So whatever you find fits your budget. Some of these are not free. So you need to make sure that you're finding one that'll fit. But you need to also see, like, there's some things that you were talking about, like page scroll. Something that I'm familiar with is, for a long time, people were wanting to make one-page websites.
Oh, God.
How much do you recommend a one-page website?
I know they have been a very strong trend in late 2024.
They came back.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Why'd y'all bring it back? It's a bad idea.
It's not a great idea, and unless it's a very specific scenario where all you need is like a conversion page where you're filling out form information.
Yeah.
Or you just have a very simple website where you have like what you do, about you, and conversion.
Yeah, very simple funnel, right? Just a little bit of information. At some point, even just the item for sale, if that's what you're selling, if you're selling products or anything like that, is definitely good for targeted landing pages, but for the entire experience,
it's not great.
No, I even before they came back in fashion, which I hope they go back out of fashion soon, because the biggest thing I see is it gives you less pages to have searched, correct?
Yeah.
And then you also, the user experience is so awful. I hate clicking at the top and then it slides me to somewhere. And I'm like, wait a minute, did I miss something important? Like, it just makes, and especially if you got tons of animations, it just becomes this barrage of like sensory overload happening. I'm like, where did the thing that I was looking for go, and am I on it?
Yeah, and from a technical standpoint too, it just takes forever to load.
Oh, definitely, because it's firing off hidden scripts and things that most people don't even know is embedded on these websites, and that drags down page speed, load speed, you name it.
Yeah, like let's say you just have a video page, but it's a section on the one-page website, and you have like 4 or 5 videos, that's going to cause a significant loading time.
Yeah, to me it just feels more bloated at the end of the day because it's everything on one page.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like retro in a way, kind of like the 70s coming back at some point.
Y'all brought back the 2010s. I didn't want that.
Yeah, but like the main thing I like to talk to people about is just like look through your website from a customer's perspective. How easy is it to get from point A to point B? And if it takes more than 5 clicks, or just to get information, if it takes more than 3 clicks, that's probably too much.
And the one thing that I tell people is get a friend, get a family member, someone to actually look at your website, who's unfamiliar with it. Because you look at it all day long, so you're not going to see the pitfalls that they might find. You're going to get them to say, hey, just see how it is to book with me. Just send them to your website and see if they navigate to it clearly, if they have any problems. Because that's one thing that I've noticed is they'll think their website's fine and that nothing's wrong with it. Something else has to be the problem. But it could come down to the complete experience at the end of the day of navigating to said funnel to book. And I think one thing they could do is just utilize a friend. Get someone that doesn't use your website daily and say, hey, I want you to try to check out. Figure out what I do, where my pricing is, how do I book with you? Those are things that I think can really help you, especially if they're, if they're a mom, that's not online constantly. Maybe they're only on social, but get them to go through a website experience and see what it's like to book a session. And if it's difficult for them, there might be something that's, in the way that you might need to fix on your website to make it more practical.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better.
I think that's one thing that they can totally lean on.
Yeah, and building on that, give them a couple tasks to do. Like I mentioned, doing the conversion, whether it's like filling out a form or just booking a session with you. Have them try to do that without any prior knowledge. And also, I would recommend having them just look for information about what you do.
Yeah. So what are some other ways that people can optimize their website directly right now?
Yeah, so this is more on a technical level, and it's pretty difficult to do if you don't know how to code, but there's this thing called schema markup. And basically what this does, it tells search engines and AI, this is what this page is about. And it's another word for it is structured data. You'll see it referred to as both. But it basically explains the, not necessarily hierarchy, but key elements of a web page. And there are a lot of different main types, and then there's subtypes, and I could probably go down the rabbit hole with this.
Yeah.
But it basically helps explain page elements to search engines and AI. And something that we've seen recently is AI loves schema markup more, because it just makes it that much easier for them to understand.
So basically, it's like a more in-depth version of metadata?
A little bit. It allows you to hit page elements as opposed to just a brief page summary.
Okay.
And that's why I've been liking it more and more.
In a previous masterclass, we talked about AI and how it's making revolutionary changes in the photography industry, mostly in post-production. It's making huge waves there, but also in marketing. What are some ways that people can lean on AI and SEO going into 2025?
Yeah, so outside of content creation, it's really good for traffic sources for information-based queries. Because earlier or mid last year, around July or September, I think, they released their search feature publicly. So every account has that search feature. So how that search feature works is all of ChatGPT is based on Bing queries. So if you want your content to appear in Bing, you got to optimize content for Bing. And that's a little bit different than Google. Google, it's all about user intent, and you can do broad match, so you don't necessarily even need to include the keywords in the content you create. Bing, they have this thing called exact match wording, where if you want to rank for a specific keyword, you got to incorporate that, and whether that's titles, whether that is subheadings, or just topics, and incorporating that keyword into the content.
So you bring it up Bing. Is Bing worth exploring these days?
I would say so, just because of ChatGPT and AI feeding off of Bing search results. We've seen Bing go from around 2% of search, I think it was like 11% last year.
That's a huge jump for them.
Yeah, and that's why AI is such a compelling thing right now for search.
And how does this compare to like Gemini or Bard or whatever it used to be called? How does that compare? Is their AI sufficient enough, or is it something that people should be like not rely on?
I haven't heard great things, and there's a reason why ChatGPT is still the #1 AI right now.
Yeah, I remember when I was exploring Bard or Gemini in its earlier phase, and I think it was coming up with strange results for a lot of people. And
with the AI overviews, yeah, there was a thing last year where someone asked how many rocks does it take to eat a day to boost your calcium, and it recommended like 30 rocks.
That's what AI was for.
Yeah. I remember seeing it all over Twitter, and I laughed so much.
Well, besides rock eating, AI is going to be able to help people when it comes to making sure that they're found in search and stuff like that. What are ways that our customers can think about AI? If you don't know, last year we released some new functionalities that are in your system that you can start playing with today, called PhotoBiz or PhotoBiz AI. So in PhotoBiz AI, it's basically tapped into ChatGPT. It's going to give you leverage, and we've optimized it, or we've curated it to be able to talk more about photography content when it comes to helping you out. So what are some ways that people can utilize that for their business?
Yeah, so our blog builder has AI integrated right now, and then a lot of our text editors do as well. I know that, or doesn't the title block have that as well?
Yes, the title block has. I think, I mean, it's going pretty much to all our blocks in our system, yeah.
And then I know we're working on a feature for our client galleries to create a blog based on the type of photography that's in that client gallery as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, the AI is here, and it's going to be able to not replace, but help. I think that's a big part of it. I think a lot of photographers, maybe the ones that aren't leaning into the technology as much, are afraid that it's to replace, where it actually can be there to assist. We talked about it in our previous classes about AI, but AI shouldn't never be there to replace or completely create content, especially photography or video content, but it should be there to help you when it comes to workflows and to optimizing your entire speed. With your website, it should be done the same way. Like, you can use it to help you write blog content, but you still want to go through it. Even the content on your website. One thing I like to do is take what's on a previous website and kind of say, hey, give this a kind of like a makeover. Like, look through it, revise in it. Because sometimes you'll find typos or things that you've said, or I'll say, hey, optimize this more for SEO. And it'll find ways to kind of integrate things that I didn't think about when it comes to, like, well, I'm a pet photographer, and I should probably mention something about animals in this one section. It's really good at that.
Oh yeah, exactly. And one thing I want to point out is just use it as a rough draft. It shouldn't be the final product.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it should be there as an assistant, not as the full-on copywriter. Besides creating content, what are ways that people can really try to connect? Because the internet is so vast. I mean, there's billions, if not trillions, of websites at this point and web pages. What are ways that people can, build up their rank strategies?
Yeah, so there is this thing called backlinking, where you get referenced on another website. And the reason why that's important is that it helps grow brand recognition on search engines, and your name becomes associated with the type of photography from another resource.
So, backlinking. We're talking about putting your website on someone else's website. Can it be anyone's website?
Yes and no. Like, you don't want to be on someone who's like a spam content writer, or just all they do for backlink building are buying backlinks for you.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. But if it's just a friend of yours who's a photographer, or maybe a local guide,
Vendors, things like event vendors, yeah.
Exactly. As long as they're relevant to your website. So let's say you're a wedding photographer, try to get listed on some of the venues that you've shot at.
Yeah.
Or some of the other vendors, like the food caterers, or just get referenced. And usually people will do that in exchange for a backlink on your website. And you could just reference them in a blog, or just your preferred vendor list, for example.
Yeah, so like, even like, say you do wedding photography and you primarily use a church or something like that, you could be that church's photographer. And that would be great for you to have a link, and you guys could just cross-link to one another, right? So that's that sourcing. What are some other relevant or even better type of backlinks that they can have? Would a better backlink be like something like if they were in the news or anything like that, or like a substantial business?
It just kind of depends. It's all about target relevancy. You want to be associated with, like, the best way I can explain it would be, do you want this person to reference you and make that public? If yes, then go for it. But if, say, like, Bill down the street that has like a coffee shop wants to reference you, but they have no photography or anything. They just like sell coffee beans. How is that relevant to headshot photography?
Yeah, and like getting on the news can be great, but it also could be a negative too, right? Because
Yeah.
if, I mean, something bad happens, someone says, "Hey, this photographer did something bad." That's a really bad link.
Yeah, well, you know what they say, there's no bad PR.
That's true. You always work it out.
Yeah, exactly.
So people can start working on creating backlinks, and this will help again with that rank, right? So this will help them. It just gives them more exposure at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And that also, having that cross-brand recognition, it kind of helps you appear in those featured snippets as well, outside of having specific coding that's targeting that. And different ways you can go about doing that as well. You can create really, really good content that people reference naturally. Something that I recommend people doing is create infographics. Those get hyperlinked all the time.
Oh yeah.
And especially with image search. And I've even done that on my personal website that I write about sports on. Like I see infographics, or I'll see an image from like ESPN that I just link back to ESPN on.
Yeah.
For the hyperlink.
You'll see, like, just when they're writing paragraphs, they'll have links through everything. You know, it's not just a static page or a blog page with nothing on it. They are hyperlinking back to true sources so they can have those intermediaries of working together at the end of the day. So you build up each other.
It also just builds up brand trustability. Like, I've had a lot of people in the past worry that it's just going to create a traffic source away from their website, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
You're providing, like, it's kind of like writing a paper back in high school. You want your sources cited because not all your information is going to be yours. You want to provide a source that backs your claims, though.
So a new term that you've given me that I'm sure not many people know is zero-click searches. What is that?
Yeah, so this happens a lot with stuff like featured snippets, but it's whenever you search for a search term, let's say local weather, and you find all your information on the search result, then you click away. That's a zero-click search because you searched for something and you didn't interact with anything.
Oh, okay. So it's just like if you say what the weather is and immediately you see it, you don't even click through to weather.com or wherever.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's just them getting the raw details right out the gate and not clicking through to your website.
Yeah, exactly. And we're seeing more and more of that because there's AI overviews, and then people are just wanting information quickly. So they'll read the meta descriptions or the section that's featured within a search result of like a blog article. And a stat that I like to reference a lot is last year that 60% of searches ended with 0 clicks.
Wow, that's incredible. Is that because of AI?
I believe so. I haven't confirmed that, but that's the general overall like feel for it.
So if Gemini is doing something, it might be something related to this, or ChatGPT. It might be because it's getting that information to the user quicker because based on everything else that's already been put out there.
Yeah, exactly. And there isn't really any way to combat that from an SEO perspective currently.
I was about to say, is that must negatively, I bet customers don't like that. Or
100%, because then I've seen it more and more when looking at metrics compared to previous years, and search traffic across every single person is down, at least like 10 to 20%.
And that's just a universal statistic. You know, like things have changed, you know, as the algorithm keeps changing. I talk about one that happened with social media about 5 years ago. That was a huge shift when they started making all these changes to Facebook or Meta and Instagram. How much that changed from letting iOS users opt out of seeing certain content. That meant right away our usership went down, but it builds back up over time. That's the important part. Like, I think a lot of people get scared when they see dips and they must think something's wrong. It could be just a universal thing that happens across not just photography industries, but every industry at the end of the day is feeling those types of effects.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen people in various SEO forums complain that they had 1 million impressions 1 month and then they went down to like 100,000 or even like 10,000
Wow.
overnight. But then those people also got hit with a manual penalty because of backlinks.
So really, you got to watch out for all those scams out there, everyone. There's going to be people telling you need this and that to actually rise in ranks, but get it from our in-house experts like Jack, who's seeing all this stuff daily. He's pretty raw about everything. If anything, I've talked to you, you're like, nah, that ain't going to work.
Yeah.
So that's the nice thing, because he's not going to fluff it up. Because a lot of people are like, yeah, you just need to pay a little bit more, buy this to get where you want. Where with our thing, it's what it is. We help you and we source the problem, and we try to help elevate you as much as we can with the parameters that are given to us. So as we end our masterclass on SEO as we go into 2025, what are some predictions that you think SEO is going to be like going forward? What do you see happening more?
It really depends on the Department of Justice thing from Google, but
Yeah.
I see search traffic decreasing more and more, especially for service-based industry, and that has to do with like current economy and all that too. But overall, I can't really predict too far ahead because AI is changing every month.
It's so rapid.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up. Like after this comes out, something's going to change. That's just how the nature of the beast is right now.
Yeah, even last month, ChatGPT or their parent company, OpenAI, had 12 days where they were talking about new features for the product that are coming out just in this month alone. And then in the oncoming months, it'll be something similar.
And Chat has their own search system that's kind of rolling out now. It's out available, I think, to everyone as long as you get on the wait list or if you have it. But that's something that's becoming a rival to Google itself, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably played a big part why Bing has increased in the search market value. And they're at like 12 to 15%, I believe, now.
Oh, wow. Who would have thought, Bing? You stuck it through.
Yeah.
You did it. Because I never thought Google would ever be in this position, but things change.
Yeah, now if Yahoo can get back up there.
Let's get Yahoo back. Bring back Yahoo 2025.
Create a hashtag around that.
Hashtag Yahoo 2025. Bring it back. Jack, I appreciate you spending some time with us during this masterclass. Everyone, if you want to have more in-depth conversations about SEO, if you like these conversations that we're having, please let us know in the comment section. This is the only way that we're going to be able to create more content that is helping you rise at the end of the day in these rankings, in this ever-changing world of algorithms and search. We want to be on top of that. And if you think this information is prevalent, you always want to reach out to us. Let us know in the comment section. If you want to work one-on-one with Jack, you can with our SEO Go services. We have that pro service available. We have SEO Go and SEO Go Plus. Those options are great because not only will he be helping you out with strategies and implementing them, that if you go to the next level, he'll actually help you with the content creation side of that. And that's really great there. And that also leads into social media. If you have any trouble with social media, if you want to have growth there, our social media services that are available, you work with Jack, you work with Jeffrey as well. You're going to work with our team, and we're going to help you grow your social media and SEO strategies on 2025. So if that just sounds like a lot of work to you, won't you lean on us? We're very affordable, especially against a lot of those competitors out there. We're going to make sure that you get up there, and we're not going to give you any fluff at the end of the day. I mean, like I said, Jack gets straight to the point. That's why I like working with him. He's very incredible with the source of information, and he's keeping me on my toes because I didn't know half the things that changed in December because I was too busy making video content, and he's like, all that's changed. And I'm like, I feel like I got to start over again. So thank you again for joining us today, Jack.
Yeah, no problem. I had a great time.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. Can't wait to see you in our next